Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, September the 6th, 2021. It is currently 9:13 a.m. Central Time, and I'm broadcasting live from Victory Baptist Church, located right here in Ovalo, Texas. Thank you so very much for listening. If you're listening to us live, always feel free to add your comments and questions. And if you're, you can listen live and add your comments, in the chat live, or you can email me. And if you're not listening to me live, you can email me as well. I always have to clarify that, but you can email me at newsif@yahoo.com. The reason I have to clarify it is because sometimes I make it sound like if you're listening live, contact me through the chat right now. And if you're not listening live, you can email me. Almost as if you're listening to me live, you cannot email me. I know I'm probably overthinking that, but anyone can email me at any time. And if you're listening live, you can contact me live through the chat option there on the Spreaker app. All right. Now that we've got all of that confusion out of the way, we have a very important subject to talk about. And I'm very worried to talk about this. I really am. Because I know people are going to get defensive. I know people are going to want to argue. So I'm going to ask you to do something, all right? I'm going to ask you to completely forget and ignore the name of the individual we're going to be talking about. I just want you to completely forget the name, not even consider the name. Just forget the name forget that I even mentioned the name. I want you to forget and ignore the name of the church we're going to be talking about. So I want you to forget the name of the individual. I want you to forget the name of the church. Now, I'm going to have to mention them since they are a big part of the story, but I'm trying to talk about something that goes way deeper than the name of the individual and the name of the church. So I have to mention them, but I want you to just ignore the name of the individual and the name of the church. I want you to completely forget and ignore if you love the preaching of this individual or if you despise the preaching of this individual. I want you to completely forget and ignore if you love this person's theology or if you completely despise their theology. I want you to forget all of that because there's something deeper here we need to talk about. And I believe that is the thing that's getting overlooked in some of the reporting, not all of the reporting, but in some of the reporting. And I really want to drive that point home. All right. I really want to drive that point home. And let's kind of lay a foundation with this concept. All right? I really want you to think about this. In your Christian life and in my Christian life, there are constant, it happens all the time, but there are situations that arises over and over and over that proves to be a test, that proves to be a trial. And how we respond to that test, how we respond to that trial may actually benefit us and help us grow spiritually, or it may become a source of temptation where we fall and where we mess up. So it doesn't matter the situation. You face situations every single day where that situation may serve kind of as like a trial that can actually, depending on how you handle it, will build you up and help you grow spiritually, or that situation will serve as a temptation that will cause you to stumble and fall. You are faced with these situations every single day. Sometimes you don't even recognize it, but it can be someone cuts you off in traffic. That seems like an insignificant thing, but you're at that very moment when they cut you off in traffic, your response will either be ungodly, not spiritual, and as a result, that situation became a temptation and you ended up sinning. Or it could be a situation where, okay, they cut me off. I'm going to be patient. I'm not going to say anything I shouldn't say. And so in that sense, it becomes a small trial that actually helps you grow in your Christian faith. It can be a situation with your wife. It could be something that one of your kids says something to you. And at that moment, it can be either a trial. In other words, you're going to handle it correctly. You're going to grow. You're going to demonstrate godliness. And so therefore, you're going to grow as a Christian, or you're going to handle it in an incorrect way, and it becomes basically a source of temptation. Think of it this way. Everything is either a trial that allows you to grow, helps purify your faith, helps just kind of develop your spirituality a little bit more, or it's a source of temptation and you respond to it by falling into sin and not handling it correctly. I want you to think of every situation that way. Trial or temptation. If you handle it correctly, it's a trial that purifies your faith, helps develop your faith, and you grow. Or it's a temptation and you fall and you end up in sin. I want you to understand everything it turns out to be that way. And what determines whether it's a temptation or a trial in a sense is your response. If you respond to it correctly, it's simply a trial. If you respond to it incorrectly, it became a source of temptation that you fell into sin. All right? Does that make sense? I want you to really think about that. Now, with that kind of basic concept in mind, I want you to think about the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic. This is something the entire world has had to deal with, right? Believers, unbelievers, Christians, non-Christians, the church and your local businesses, your church and the local movie theater, your church and the local bar, you name it. Everyone's had to deal with it. But as Christians, COVID-19 was either going to be a trial, which was going to help us grow spiritually, where we would demonstrate that we can handle things in a spiritual way, think spiritually, or COVID-19 was going to become a source of great temptation, and we were going to fall into sin and end up handling ourselves in an ungodly way. Now, the COVID-19 situation is far from over, but when the history books are written, and we look back at 2020, 2021, forever how long this lasts, when the history books are written, they're going to say, if you want to see how to handle a pandemic, look at the church in 2020 and 2021. They demonstrated godliness. They demonstrated thoughtfulness. They demonstrated compassion. They demonstrated great wisdom and understanding. They were as wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. It is amazing to look at how the church handled a pandemic in 2020 and 2021. This will be an example for future generations. Or the history book's going to be, well, if you want to see how not to handle a pandemic, look at how the church handled the pandemic in 2020 and 2021. They acted like spoiled brats. They lied, they deceived, they misrepresented, they gave misinformation. They wanted to just throw a fit. And I don't know how the history books are going to be written. You tell me, what do you think we're going to see? Do you think, in a sense, COVID-19 proved to be a trial that purified the church? Or do you think COVID-19 has proven to be a source of great temptation and the church has failed miserably? I think that's a very, very important question for you to consider and for you to think about. Now, I bring all of this up because now I've got to insert into this discussion the name of the individual, the name of the church. And again, I don't want you to get caught up on the name. I'm trying to talk about something deeper, obviously, right? So many times when I try to do this, everyone they focus on one thing and ignore everything I'm trying to say, the point I'm trying to make. So sometimes I have to repeat the point like 500 times. I'll get 100 emails going, you repeated yourself too much. And then the next time I won't repeat myself that much. And I'll get 100 emails demonstrating that no one understood the point that I was trying to make. So it's absolutely like it's a no-win situation. But the point I'm trying to make is COVID-19, I think, has proven to be more of a source of temptation to the church than a trial where we have purified ourselves and have come out, more godly, demonstrating godliness, holiness, and right thinking. I think it's become more of a source of temptation. And you just look at all of the craziness that has ensued around COVID, how the church has handled, how it's divided churches, divided family members, how people are at school board meetings ranting and raving and threatening. It's just absolutely crazy. All the things that are going on in society when it comes to COVID. It's just, once again, it just demonstrates that you put a little bit of pressure on people. You put a little bit of, they are inconvenienced a little bit. They're forced to do something maybe they don't want to do, and guess what we see rising up? Selfishness. Guess what we see rising up? Arrogance, pride, self-centeredness, anger. It's just crazy that a little bit of pressure, a little bit of inconvenience, a little bit of difficulty, and then the depravity of man comes, not just rises to the top, it just comes. It's like the dam breaks, and it just the depravity comes just flowing out, bursting out, because I just look at everything that's happened, and at times you just have to shake your head like, what in the world is going on? And here we have another example. We've already talked about this previously, but different stories and different articles continue to be written. So I wanted to return to this one more time, and I wanted to look at it from this deeper perspective. But here is the basic information. This story was published 4 days ago. The author is Jonathan Poletti, Poletti. All right, it takes about 5 minutes to read. Here is the headline. John MacArthur got COVID-19 and concealed it. John MacArthur got COVID-19 and concealed it. Now let's stop right here. I want you to forget about the name John MacArthur. I want you to forget about COVID-19. I want you to think about it from this perspective. How important is telling the truth in the church? Now, I'm going to say, well, it's not important when it comes to COVID. Okay, if you want to be relativistic and just say, well, morality only matters in this situation, it doesn't matter in this situation. If you want to kind of be relativistic and just, morality is only to be applied in certain situations, it's relative depending on when it's applicable, when it's not applicable. If you want to go there, fine. At that point, you're basically denying a Christian worldview. Because my Bible still has it. Now, maybe we'll get a future edition and we can remove this, but my Bible still states this, and I'm going to read it carefully. Ephesians chapter 4. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 24. And listen carefully. I'll go back to 23 for context. And be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and that ye put on the new man, which is after God is created in righteousness and true holiness. So you need to put on the new man. We talk about that a lot within Christianity. As Christians, we need to put on the new man. We need to put off the old, put on the new. And when we put on the new man, we should live differently because we've put on the new man. And what is one of the first signs listed here of putting on the new man? Well, one of the first signs of putting on the new man is this. Wherefore, putting away lying, speak every man truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another. So one of the first signs of putting on the new man is that you put away lying. So no lying, you speak truth. And the reason we speak truth is because we see that we are members one of another. We see that we are to put away lying and speak the truth because in a sense, we have some kind of a moral responsibility to the people around us. It's not just about us. We have a responsibility to other people. We're to love other people. We're to love even our enemies. So one of the signs of putting on the new man is putting away lying and speaking the truth. It doesn't require a seminary education to figure that out. Doesn't require extensive years of study in the Greek language. Put away lying and speak the truth. Now back to the headline. John MacArthur got COVID and concealed it. All right, so concealed it. How did he conceal it? Did he misrepresent? Did they lie? Did they not speak the truth to their neighbor? Now, if they misrepresented, lied, and didn't speak the truth, is that an issue? Now, again, I don't want 900 emails going, well, COVID is not real, and I don't believe in COVID. It's not the issue. The issue is speaking the truth. The issue is put away lying. Did they handle it in a truthful, upright manner that demonstrates that they had put on the new man? Now, remember, MacArthur's theology, lordship theology says, hey, your actions demonstrate whether you're saved or not saved, right? If you're truly saved, you'll do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. And if you don't do enough of this, then you demonstrate that you were never saved. So one of the basic so-called proofs of being a Christian would be putting away lying and speaking the truth. So let's see. Let's read the story and see exactly what happened. Here we go. In a sermon on August the 30th, John MacArthur of Grace Community Church, a key leader of the evangelical world, said he'd caught COVID-19 last December. Now, why is this a big deal? Because up to this point, we have not been told this. Up to this point, it seems that there were denials. That up to this point, I think you could argue there was somewhat of a cover-up. Well, wait a minute. We're speaking the truth. We're putting away lying. Again, forget COVID, forget MacArthur, forget all of that. Just think about lying and speaking the truth. For months, there was speculation, but he denied it until casually mentioning it as if an incidental detail. So for months, he denied it. I want you to hear that. For months, there was denial. Well, if you're denying something that was true, then that means you were not telling the truth. And then casually, he mentioned it as if it's just an incidental detail. He just kind of casually mentioned it. And there were I saw a number of websites that were kind of like, whoa. And these were like more pro-MacArthur websites. And even them were kind of like, wait, what? What did he just say? What just happened? This is a fascinating scene in evangelical history. Now, according to this article, this is a fascinating scene in evangelical history. Now, I don't know if we can, it depends on how we understand that. I think what will be what's a fascinating page in evangelical history is how the evangelical church has conducted themselves during the midst of a pandemic. I think that's going to be what's going to be a fascinating scene in church history, is how did the Christian church handle itself in a pandemic where over 4 million people had died globally, over 630,000 people have died in the United States of America alone. When people were dying, how did the church respond? How did the church handle itself? Did godly, biblical, wise, rational, thoughtful, compassionate, caring, or you can find some other words to describe maybe how the church has handled itself. Okay. And here is the next line here. I set out before me the story of a secret. So this person is going to set out the story of a secret. Now, is it a secret or is it a story of deception? You tell me. On December the 8th, 2020, Grace Community Church had a staff Christmas party. There were no masks, no social distancing, as usual. The staff hugged and shook hands. The church had a lot to celebrate. They'd stayed open through a pandemic. There is no pandemic, MacArthur had famously said, calling it the virus of deception perpetrated by the arch deceiver Satan himself. Now, I want you to hear all of that. John MacArthur said that there is no pandemic. Now, let's stop right here. I may not be the smartest person in the room, but I do have Google. So if I just type in pandemic definition, I'll find this. A pandemic is an epidemic of an infectious disease that is spread across a large region, for instance, multiple continents or worldwide, affecting a substantial number of people. Well, if I look at all the countries and continents where COVID has been and has spread and has infected people, well, there's the worldwide part. It's an infectious disease, and it's greatly impacted a large number of people because over 4 million people have died. So there is a pandemic. So for a pastor to stand in the pulpit and say there is no pandemic is categorically false. It's a lie. It's wrong. But does anybody care? Absolutely not. Because no, who cares? Because what happened? The pandemic became political. Once again, demonstrating the political hijacking of the church, which is something, I know I keep kicking that dead horse over and over and over, but why else would a pastor stand behind a pulpit and say, there is no pandemic? How could you say that with a straight face? Like you have to be You have to be out of your mind to say something that's so absolutely categorically untrue. Now remember, one of the marks of a new man, put away lying, speak every man truth with his neighbor. Well, if you're standing behind the pulpit and you're saying there is no pandemic, you're lying. You're not speaking the truth. And we can end this broadcast right there. But does that bother anybody? No, nobody cares. Nobody, because we say we care about truth. We say we care about the Bible, but the Bible is nothing more than a buffet. Now, if you don't like someone, let me make it very clear. If you don't like someone, then you can grab the verse about lying and speaking the truth. And if they lie and don't speak the truth, you'll bash them over the head with it like a baseball bat. But if it's someone you like, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. Sometimes we are about as disingenuous with how much we really believe the Bible and how much we care about the Bible. It's just, sometimes we're an absolute joke. Now, do I expect MacArthur to be perfect? Absolutely not. He was confronted with a situation, right? One of those situations, trial or temptation. To me, ultimately became a source of temptation, and he messed up. I have been confronted with plenty of situations where a trial basically became a source of temptation, and I messed up a million times. I have messed up a zillion times in my life. I have fallen and stumbled a zillion times. I just keep trying to get back up and crawl a little further down the road. So I'm not saying that I'm morally superior in any way, shape, or form. I'm saying, though, the issue is not only should MacArthur care, but everyone should care. Wait a minute. I don't know if we've handled ourselves in a godly manner. This is not even about MacArthur. This is about you, me, your church, your Christian friends, your Christian family members. How have we conducted ourselves in the middle of a pandemic? If you're running around saying there is no pandemic, you're a liar just based off of the basic definition of a pandemic. COVID meets the criteria of being defined as a pandemic, and any reasonable, rational person who can simply read can understand that. All right, let's go on. And then please note, here we go. It's just absolutely crazy. So it's a virus of deception. So there is no pandemic. It's a virus of deception perpetrated by the arch deceiver Satan himself. Isn't that what the church always runs? The church always runs to that. It always runs to that. This is Satan. See, the whole pandemic, it's just a virus of deception, and Satan is doing this. Satan. All we got to do is, hey, don't worry about the pandemic. Don't worry about people getting sick and dying. No. That's not just don't look at that, because all of that is simply a virus of deception put forth by Satan. Don't look at actually people getting sick and dying. Don't look at people in the hospital on ventilators. Don't look at the fact that your local hospital is saying, hey, we don't have enough rooms. We may have to start rationing care. Forget all of that. Satan. Here we go. Satan. We need to worry about Satan. I'm going to do something really quick. I wasn't planning on this, but at the end of this table, I know you can't see, I'm pointing. At the end of this table, there's a book lying face down. I'm going to go pick up that book. I'll be right back. All right? Right here. Here it is. Can you identify the book by the sound of those pages? Can you? Right? It has 272 pages. The last two words in the book is Yankee Rose. Oh, that should give it away right there. The last two words in the book is Yankee Rose. Let me go back to, now the cover is missing because I've had this since I was a teenager. The cover is gone. All right. The cover had, and you can still see some of the pages are they're kind of burnt because I would set candles on top of it sometimes. Okay. This is the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey. Right? Now, if we open this up, then it's for Diane. That's how it has here. Then we have the table of contents, introduction, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Here's the introduction telling about how Anton LaVey basically ended up becoming a Satanist, quote unquote. It's a pretty lengthy introduction. It's an interesting read. All right. Then here we have it. I'm going through all of this. The 9 satanic statements. the 9 satanic statements. If you're going to be a Satanist, these are basically like your creed, your doctrinal statement. Here's like the doctrinal statement for the Church of Satan. All right. And when we say Satanism, the Anton LaVey version of Satanism. All right. And here is number 9. Number 9, I'm going to read it. Page 25 of the Satanic Bible, Anton LaVey. Here we go. Number 9. Satan has been the best friend the church has ever had, as he has kept it in business all these years. Let me read it again. According to Anton LaVey, Satan has been the best friend the church has ever had, as he has kept it in business all these years. That what the church constantly needs is we use and we need Satan to stay in business. Our business sometimes is blame Satan for everything, get everyone so fearful of Satan, so you need the church and you need quote unquote Christianity to protect you from Satan. Now, I'm not saying that I completely agree with everything that he's saying here, but at the same time, there is at least a small element of truth here. Because Christians have run around forever. Satan this, Satan that, Satan there, Satan this, Satan. Everything's Satan. Oh, watch out. Satan. So here's how some Christians handled this. And MacArthur's statements, I'm not saying that he would go this far, but there's an implication here. All right, look, guys. Don't worry about people getting sick with COVID. Don't worry about wearing a mask or getting vaccine or social distancing. Don't worry about doing anything. Let's not worry about following any of the rules the government officials are giving us. Let's violate the rules. Let's protest. Let's not put on a mask. Let's not social distance. Because all of this is just a big satanic plot. It's a big satanic plot by our arch nemesis, our arch enemy. It's Satan, the deceiver. He's out to get us. The real threat here is not COVID. The real issue here is not a pandemic. The real issue is not people dying. The real issue is, wait for it, could it be Satan? Could it be the devil? That's what you really need to be worried about, church. Don't worry about COVID. Worry about Satan. Satan is out to get you. Satan is deceiving you. So don't believe anything you hear about COVID. It's all a virus of deception. That is what the church, many churches are going to be remembered when it comes to COVID. That's like, hey, there's reports of severe wildfires in our area that could possibly, end up wiping out the church and burning the building down. So we ask you to evacuate the area and not to have a church service because the fires could wipe you out. Hey, everyone, listen. That's Satan. Satan is out to deceive us. Say, don't listen. So let's all meet in the building. And when it burns to the ground, just remember there wasn't really a fire. It was all a plot to deceive you. It was Satan. All you got to do is say, hey, COVID-19 is not real. It's a virus of deception put forth by Satan. And that's enough to get most Christians going, okay, well, then I'm not going to worry about the pandemic and I'm not going to do anything. And I'm not going to worry about anybody else because we know the truth. It's all of Satan. And I've heard countless Christian programs putting forth this same kind of concept. Maybe not that explicit, but it is implied that all of COVID, this is all a satanic plot, getting us ready for to reveal the Antichrist. So forget the reality of the pandemic. This is all a satanic plot. We need to see the satanic plot. We don't need to be worrying about people getting sick and dying. Oh, boy. All right, so there is no pandemic, MacArthur had famously said, calling it the virus of deception perpetrated by the arch deceiver Satan himself. At age 81, he was again at the forefront of the evangelical world, seen as boldly standing up to oppressive government powers. He had security guards keep out health inspectors to evade oversight. The church service was dubbed a political event. This was, the church said, a Jesus Life Matters protest. Now, we won't even get into doing that. That's just, the Black Lives Matters protest. Well, if they can protest, then this is a Jesus Life Matters protest. right? So, and I know some people will celebrate that. Yeah, stand against that oppressive government. Don't let the health inspectors in. We're going to prove our point because this is all a plot against Satan. We're standing against Satan. We're standing against tyranny. We don't really care if anybody's getting sick and dying because you know what? Really, nobody's getting sick and dying. It's all deception. It's all lies. It's all smoke and mirrors. Don't believe any of it. That's going to be the legacy of the church. Whenever the COVID is done and we finally get the final death number, while that many people died, this is what the church was doing. It was the church versus Satan. There it is in the article. It was the church versus Satan. Why? Because that's all you've got to do. All you got to do is say, Satan is the issue. All you got to do is say Satan is the issue, and Christians will be like, that's it, that's Satan. He's everywhere. Satan, run. He's underneath the pew. Satan's out to get us. That's all you got to do. And then forget any other rational thought about anything going on. I don't know, actual people dying in the hospital. No. It's Satan, everyone. It's not COVID. It's not COVID. It's Satan. It's the devil. It's the devil. The mask is an instrument of the devil. The devil wants us all to put on masks. That's what he wants us to do. He's trying to destroy you. That's what it's turned into. And the Christmas party would be a time to celebrate the people of God prevailing over the power of darkness once again. The legal tides were shifting in their favor. Days earlier, on November the 26th, the Supreme Court had struck down restrictions on religious services in New York. Soon, Los Angeles County would follow suit. Now, let's stop right here. Let me make it very clear. I got no problem. If you're a church, the government is trying to do something and you have not normal legal recourse that is afforded to you under the Constitution, by all means, fight it in court. Now, I think in the meantime, to demonstrate godliness, we go along, we do the best we can to follow the rules while we try to fight it in a very respectful and godly manner in court. I think there's an easy way to go about doing that. In the meantime, you do the best you can to operate the church within the parameters set for you while you then argue in court that, hey, this is unconstitutional. If you lose in court, then you have to make the decision, now do we fight, now do we rebel, or what do we do? I got no problem going through the legal course. Now, I may disagree with ultimately how you handle it, but I think that everyone can say that seems reasonable, godly, rational, logical. But the meantime is you got to be taking what's happening around you seriously, but no. It's all a plot. It's all a plot. Our arch enemy, Satan, he's out to deceive us. That's where I have the problem. The church leaders might have surmised the county would be forced to pay all legal bills. It would sound like a thrilling David and Goliath story. So that the way this was all going to work out, that it was sounding like David and Goliath. The government is Goliath, the church is David, and we're going to fight and we're going to win. And ultimately, though, you're not even fighting the government, you're fighting Satan. Again, that's kind of the way the narrative was created. At the Christmas party, MacArthur gave a speech with these talking points. Number one, COVID PCR tests are inaccurate and should not be trusted. Now, here we go. Now, again, here's a pastor going to play medical expert. So the COVID PCR tests are inaccurate and should not be trusted. So don't even get tested because you can't trust them. Now, I heard this on Alex Jones. I heard that they're giving false positives. You can't trust it. These tests are basically giving you a positive reading so that they can inflate the numbers. I've heard this on InfoWars. I've heard all kinds of conspiracy sites. And here it is, MacArthur saying this kind of stuff at a Christmas party. Christmas party, because as Christians, we get together to celebrate, the incarnation of Christ. What am I talking about? No, we're fighting the evil government and Satan because, okay, whatever. All right, here we go. Number two, don't take the vaccine. It's just a money ploy. So here's the church telling you basically don't get tested, don't get the vaccine. Number three, Grace is welcoming 400 new members. Number four, the giving is the best it's ever been. Hey, this pandemic's working out really good for us. More people, more money. You know what? What did Anton LaVey say? Satan Satan is great for the church. It keeps it in business. Well, you've turned it into now a fight against the arch enemy Satan. And what's happened? You're making more money and you're getting more people. What? Isn't that wonderful how that works? Isn't that just interesting how that works? Number 5, there are no long-term side effects to COVID. Again, this is being said by someone in the church. Who gives you the right to offer that kind of medical information? Who made you a medical expert? 2 Sundays later. So that's the Christmas party. 2 Sundays later, he was seen to be out of breath. All of a sudden now MacArthur seemed having a little bit out of breath. At age 81, MacArthur is typically vigorous, still the tall football player who'd kept the evangelical world enthralled for decades. Now, there's some issues about I've heard that there's some disputes about his claim to football and what he did and didn't do. I don't know about all of that, but just so that you know that is floating around. The following week, MacArthur disappears from public view. Gone. Just gone. On Sunday, December the 27th, he skipped preaching duties with an announcement he would be resting. Now, here's the question. He's resting. Now, is that fair to just say that you're resting? Or is it fair to say, I'm out because I have COVID? Do you need to tell everyone you're out with COVID? Well, in the middle of a pandemic, when you were just at the Christmas party and you were just at church, it would only be, godly. Forget godly. It would just be ethical to let everyone know, hey, I was at church last Sunday. I'm not feeling well. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I haven't got tested yet. So everyone, just be checking yourself, like just coming out and just letting everyone know. Like that would be forget Christianity. I think just from a purely secular, ungodly, worldly perspective, that would just be the ethical, compassionate, right thing to do to ensure that everyone is safe and protected, right? I mean, what do I know? Because, Christianity obviously doesn't much care about truth and speaking, and putting away lying. There was talk of him having a stomach bug. Now, I don't know where that talk comes from. That's in quotes, stomach bug. I don't know where that is derived, so I don't know if that's true or not. The other part I know is true because I heard that he would be resting because I remember when all that went down. I don't know where the talk of the stomach bug came from. He admits now in August that he knew it was COVID-19. So now he's like, oh, it was COVID. So now he admits he knew it was COVID. So he knew it was COVID, and they did not tell anyone. Hey, as long as you're fighting the arch enemy Satan, then you can use Satan's tactics, right? Satan's the father of lies. So by all means, lie, cover it up. Don't speak the truth. It's perfectly okay because that's the way we work as Christians because we just pick and choose what we want to apply. So guess what? The whole situation was a trial that turned into a temptation and they failed. Now, let me make it very clear. I'm going to say it again. I have failed millions of tests in my Christian life. I have messed up millions of times in my Christian life. The issue is, at what point are Christians going to stop and ask themselves, does any of this even matter? Does it even matter? Because I guarantee you, if he had covered up something else, if he wasn't completely truthful about something else, so this is how it goes down in the church. If you cover up or not truthful about certain issues, then everyone's screaming, crucify him, stone the heathen, you're disqualified for ministry. But if you are not honest and you deceive and cover up things related to COVID, you're a hero. Now, that demonstrates that we're just as relativistic as the postmodern world that the Christians rail against. We rally postmodernism, relativism, that is so ungodly. We operate under the same principles within Christianity. If he was covering up something, depending on you just named this, you could probably pick some issues that if he covered up something related to this, that everybody would be, that's the end. His ministry is over. But hey, if it's about COVID, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Because how we deal with COVID, listen, I'm going to state it again. The church has got its marching orders and how to deal with COVID, not from deep, careful study of Scripture, but from listening to their political party of choice or listening to their conspiracy theory podcaster of choice, or just gathering information from whatever source they want. Way back when COVID started, I tried to give everyone a scriptural toolbox of scriptures that we needed to consider. Not just one, not just two, but a bunch of them, and go, okay, so these are whatever we do, whatever we say, these are some basic scriptures we need to keep in mind. Speaking the truth and put away lying was clearly in that toolbox. So he admits now he knew it was COVID. So now we know now that when they gave that announcement, they weren't being truthful and honest. 7 leaders who had been at the staff Christmas party had also reportedly come down with the virus. MacArthur mentions his wife also caught it. So MacArthur, 7 other people, and his wife all got it. And it was kept on the shh, because, hey, COVID is not real. There's no pandemic. Remember, we're fighting Satan. We're not fighting a pandemic. MacArthur, and I quote, "Many people contracted COVID. We understand that it probably went through the church in maybe December and January. That's when I began to realize how many people were ill. And that's when Patricia and I enjoyed our own bout with COVID for about a week and a half, and we were fine. And we're thankful for that. So the Lord has protected us through this." That was the admission he made in August. So he knew how many people were ill, and they didn't tell anyone. They covered it up. That's not correct. The story continues. The church kept quiet. County regulations required reporting whenever there were 3 infections within a 14-day window. Well, if MacArthur, his wife, and 7 other people got it, they meet the requirement that they needed to report it to the county. But they didn't report it to the county. Now, we're in the middle of a pandemic. You're asked to report it. You don't report it. Where is the godly wisdom in that? You know why? Because there is no pandemic. There is no pandemic. It's Satan. It's Satan. It's Satan. It's Satan. Everything's Satan. It's Satan. Don't look behind the curtain. It's Satan. As long as you throw out that it's Satan, then nobody cares about anything else. It's the go-to tactic for many within the Christian church. Always blame Satan. Doesn't matter, a pastor, whatever the pastor does wrong, just blame Satan. Just blame Satan. You get caught doing something, just blame Satan. Now, that doesn't work for some sins. Some sins, people's like, I don't care if it's Satan or not. You did this, you're done. You're finished. Crucify the heathen. You know, how many people run around screaming that Mark Driscoll disqualified himself from ministry? He should be done. Ed Litton, plagiarism, doesn't matter. Wrong doctrine of the Trinity, doesn't matter. See, it just depends who you are and what you do. Lie about the pandemic, doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. It's just interesting, like how we just arbitrarily apply rules to whomever we want, whenever we want. So county regulations required reporting whenever there were 3 infections within a 14-day window. They could have been shut down just when it seemed they prevailed. So they could have been shut down if they would have reported it, which would have gone against their entire "we're winning" narrative. They seem to have cracked down on any leaks. The evangelical journalist Julie Roys reported that insiders are being pressured not to report new COVID cases, with staff apparently believing they would lose their jobs if they did. So, and I remember these reports that people are like, no, I can't report anything or I'm going to lose my job. If you're in a church or in a ministry and you're going to possibly get fired for reporting COVID, then you're not in a ministry, you're in a cover-up, or it sounds like the mafia. Now, I know that's a little hyperbole because the mafia obviously does very, very horrible things, but I'm saying you're told to cover it up. You're going to lose your job. You're being threatened. Wait, I thought... Oh, no. I'm sorry. That whole verse about the new man, speak the truth and put away lying. I'm sorry. that wasn't an old version of the Bible. The newer versions realized that, no, don't speak the truth and put away lying when you're dealing with COVID, because we're fighting Satan and we got to, by any means necessary. Satan lies, we have to lie. I guess that's the way it works. It was a gamble that MacArthur's would survive. If he or his wife died or even had to go to the hospital, it would become clear they attempted to conceal the infection. So it was a gamble. Right? As long as they don't end up in the hospital, they don't die, everything's going to work out. On Sunday, January the 3rd, he was absent again. So he misses again. This time, the excuse was he had to prepare for a conference. Now, I want you to just think about this. You go to church and you're told your pastor's not there. On Sunday morning, the Lord's Day. I mean, if you're gonna talk about when should the church meet, we would all say that Sunday is when we're supposed to meet. But hey, your pastor's not there. Why? Well, he's preparing for a conference that doesn't happen till, I believe, March. So on January, now he's a full-time minister. And nobody in the church raised a question. Wait a minute. So our full-time ministry, our full-time pastor who has a full-time salary can't prepare for the conference on Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. He has to prepare for the conference on a Sunday morning during the worship hour. Hey, but I guess that's ethical too. You know, hey, you skip preaching your primary job to go. I'm going to start using that. Hey, guys. I'm not going to be at church Sunday because I'm going to be preparing for podcast. I'm going to be preparing for podcast. That's what I'm going to do. You know, I wouldn't get away with that because people would get upset and go, "You're putting the podcast before the church." But hey, but now we know that obviously wasn't he wasn't preparing for the conference. He was at home recovering from COVID. So again, this is all misrepresentations and lies. This seems so absurd that everyone at the church who was paying attention surely knew. Yeah, it does seem absolutely absurd. It's completely absurd that you would even think you could use that excuse, but you can use that excuse because, hey, don't look behind the curtain. Remember. It's Satan. That's the issue, right? That's the issue. Remember, this is all a virus of deception by our arch nemesis. Oh, it's so crazy the way we play this game. And I say we, because we are all part of Christianity, and these kinds of games happen everywhere. I've probably played them. You've probably played them. MacArthur was gone on the 2 following Sundays. So that's a total of 4 Sundays he's gone, a month. But there was no explanation. Though he later says his illness lasted a week and a half, it seems to have lasted a month. Now, whether it lasted a month or a week and a half, I don't know, but he was gone for a month. Now, what I think happened, what I'm just speculating here, he probably was sick for about a week and a half, started feeling better, but he stayed away for the entire month, maybe trying to get that 14-day window of quarantine and isolating and staying away from everybody. Possibly because the last thing he would want is to spread it any further because they were trying to conceal all of this and keep it all covered up. That's the best I could think of, because whatever the case may be, he was gone for a month. On Sunday, January the 23rd, he was back in the pulpit, but coughing. He barely referenced his absence, just saying it was rare for him to be away since I love to minister the word of God. I love to minister the word of God, but, I had to be out for, rest, and I had to be out to prepare for the Shepherd's Conference. But I really love being here, right? So he doesn't explain it. And the church kept up public talk of being full of divine immunity, even as people were dying. When they did, COVID-19 seems to not have been mentioned at their funerals. So they kept talking about, we have divine immunity, people are dying, divine immunity. Now, I don't know. There is a lot of speculation. There seems to be no question that someone in Master Seminary got COVID and died. That seems to be pretty much not disputed. I don't know if people in the church got it. I know people in the church got it because MacArthur himself admits that it went through the church and he realized how many people were ill. So he now admits that a lot of people had it. But if anyone did die of it, let's not talk about COVID. And we've seen that Doctors have talked about this in hospitals. You'll have people there who've denied that there's no pandemic, COVID is not real. They're literally dying. And they will tell the doctor, it's not COVID. COVID's not real. You're dying of it. There are family members where they've had people who are anti-COVID, anti-vax, anti-mask, and they die. And the family members do not want it mentioned that the person died of COVID. They don't want it mentioned. It's like, why can't you just say, I was wrong? Like, is that hard? I was wrong. It's my fault. I messed up. I was wrong. It's perfectly okay to say that. Other than, well, when your pride gets in the way. I've had to look people in the eye and say, it was my fault. I was wrong. I messed up. I didn't do it because I was more spiritual. I did it because, what else was I going to say? It's Satan. It was somebody else. It was me. I messed up. It was me. I'm the sinner. I'm the liar. Me. It's okay to admit when we're wrong. If we can't do that, then if we can't admit we're wrong, then all of Christianity is just a sham. It drives me crazy. Divine immunity. I'm so sick of hearing Christians with that nonsense. We can get sick and die, okay? Wasn't all evangelical theology at stake? That's the question they ask. Wasn't all evangelical theology at stake? I hope all evangelical theology wasn't at stake. Or, maybe I don't refer to myself as an evangelical, so maybe my theology wasn't at stake. But here's how the article continues. The idea is often suggested that God's true believers are divinely protected by their spiritual status, even by the church building. Now, I don't think that's real evangelical theology. There may be some out there who believe that nonsense, but we're not protected by we can get sick, we get cancer, we can die. Our churches can burn to the ground. Our churches can be destroyed by a tornado. We're not protected in any special way like that. As MacArthur later explains, the church's legal wrangling with Los Angeles County is just amazing how the Lord has protected us. Isn't it? Had MacArthur acknowledged his infection at the time, he might have seemed less. It might have seemed less of God's favorite than he'd like. The church would have been widely mocked. So, in other words, they had an invested reason to cover it up, right? They had an invested reason to cover it up. 1, they were getting more money. 2, they were getting more people. 3, they were trying to fight the county. You don't want the county to know that there was a COVID outbreak, so they had an invested reason to cover it up. The advantage to concealing it was clear. He knew that if he recovered, he'd seem strong, be able to laugh off the virus that has everyone so scared. The natural immunity that God has designed is the greatest protection, he explains now, since God has a way of taking care of us as we love each other and share our germs. This is not quite saying the human immune system is adequate to resisting the virus. That is the special ingredient of the love shared at Grace Community Church as flows through him, its pastor. By late August, the church had compelled the government to pay its legal bills. Los Angeles County and the state of California has combined to pay a settlement of $800,000. It read to the church's supporters as a wonderful divine victory, not just over the oppressive government, but over the virus itself. As MacArthur explains in a recent Q&A, he didn't think the virus was very contagious. We've been meeting together like this and for months and months and months. And the health department was here a couple of weeks ago to say there's no outbreak at Grace Church. How is that possible if what they say is so? We are a microcosm of the world. He added, I wanted to encourage you that spiritually speaking, this is the best place you could be. So in other words, they covered it up. There is no outbreak. This is the best place you can be. We have divine immunity. If it was really as contagious as everyone said it was, then it would have shown up here. Well, it did show up there, and you covered it up. Okay, what in the world? How can you be so disingenuous? How can you just be so misleading and deceptive? This episode seems to explain so much of the evangelical culture. The markers of success that they focused on were achieved by lies. want you to hear that again. The markers of success that they focused on were achieved by lies. All of the success that they had, they achieved it through lying, through covering up. There seems to have been no internal church pressure for MacArthur to report his infection. He might have been faulted for it if he had. He writes now to his supporters, "There is no circumstance that can cause the church to close. The church is not only a building, but is the bride of Christ and exists to proclaim the truth." Oh, the irony. The irony there is so wow. We're here to proclaim the truth. And then look what the author says. Lying is the very activity he'd assigned to Satan. But all of that is just talk. What matters is the theater of victory. I want you to hear that again. Lying is the very activity that MacArthur would assign to Satan, but all of that is just talk. What matters is the theater of victory. Wow, what a powerful article. And remember, this is not all of this. This is not based on hearsay. MacArthur himself stood behind the pulpit on August the 30th and said, "Hey, I had COVID. My wife had COVID, and it ran through the church. And I realized back in December, January, how many people were ill." He acknowledges it after all of the cover up and all of the denial. No, forget the name MacArthur. Forget the name Grace Community Church. Forget the ministry Grace to You. Forget Master Seminary. Is that the biblical way to handle this? They were placed in a difficult situation because of the battle they were trying to fight. It was going to unravel all of their efforts. So they covered it up. They were faced with a challenge. They were faced with a trial. And instead of handling the trial in a godly manner, which would have been admission of COVID present, taking precautions, quarantine, shutting down, making sure everybody was safe and okay, checking on everyone, admitting that they underestimated how contagious it was. They underestimated the severity of it, admitting that you probably shouldn't have stood behind the pulpit and told everyone that there is no pandemic. That's a virus of deception perpetrated by our arch enemy, Satan. You shouldn't have been telling everyone at the Christmas party that the tests are inaccurate. Don't get the vaccine. It's only a money-making scheme. You should have just acknowledged that you have misled and you mishandled this, and that as a spiritual leader and as a shepherd over the people, you made a mistake. You failed. I got no problem. Acknowledge, confess, repent, restore. Let's get back to work. But no, he doesn't have to do any of that. Why? Because we don't really care about truth. We say we do. We say we do, but we don't. It's that simple. Now, if he had lied and said all kinds of wrong things about certain issues, that would be like if he said something that the church believes was not doctrinally incorrect. That would be grounds to possibly get rid of him. But hey, lying, no big deal. If he would, there's other sins. If he would have committed, get him out of the pulpit. Get him out of the pulpit. But hey, misrepresenting, lying, possibly putting people's lives at risk. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Using the very tactics that we would assign to Satan in order for us to gain victory. Satan is the father of lies and lies. He doesn't speak the truth. He doesn't know the truth. We're supposed to speak the truth, but we set aside that for political theater, for political victory, for winning the battle. And MacArthur comes out, the hero who stood against the evil government. MacArthur is the hero who stood against Satan. All the while, the whole thing was cover up, misrepresentation, false information, lies being spoken from the pulpit. To tell everyone there's no pandemic, that's a straight up provable lie. There is a pandemic. It meets the definition, the basic definition of a pandemic. Now, I'm not talking about how serious you think it is. Remember, the definition of a pandemic doesn't talk about the seriousness of it. Let me read it to you again. A pandemic is an epidemic of an infectious disease that has spread across a large region. For instance, multiple continents or worldwide, affecting a substantial number of people. COVID meets that definition. To say that it doesn't, you are a liar. But that's how the church has handled it. And I can give you millions of other examples of Christians just acting like they're out of their absolute mind. They can't think rationally, and all they want to do is prove that it's almost, this is really weird. This is what I've seen. For many, COVID has become like a football fan, like a sports fan. COVID is the team you're rooting against, right? You're against COVID. So it's almost like now you have a vested interest. You've staked your claim that you don't believe COVID is seriously, or you believe this is the treatment you should take. You've staked your claim and making your statements. And so now you've got to defend it at all costs because you don't want to look like you're wrong. You don't want to lose. It's like two football fans fighting over, I'm for this team, I'm for that team, and I'm going to prove that I'm right. And that's ridiculous. We're in the middle of a pandemic. This is not a time to fight about, I'm right. Look, I'm going to prove I'm right. I'm going to get on social media. I'm going to prove it. Look, here's what someone in Israel said. Here, look at this. This proves it. And you can go, well, wait a minute here. There's a couple of things. Doesn't matter because we all have chosen our side when it comes to COVID. And we're more worried about being right than we are about, ending the pandemic, protecting people, saving lives. No, we want to prove that we're right. We want to prove, like if you're on I'd say, whatever Fox News has reported, if that's your team, you're going to defend what Fox News says. If your team is MSNBC or CNN, if you're a liberal, if you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican, it's turned into sides. It's turned into tribalism. It's turned into like sports fans, and we cannot admit that we're wrong. One, I don't know why Christian leaders still think that they need to play doctor. I still don't get it. I still don't know why they would be out there putting out medical advice. You don't know a person's medical condition. Remember all the discussion about how many people died of comorbidity? Right? That some underlying health issues make you very vulnerable to dying from COVID. Well, then you don't want to be giving anyone medical advice. What you need to be telling people is, your doctor knows your medical history. Talk to your doctor, understanding what underlying health issues, how vulnerable that makes you to COVID. Like, you can't give anyone advice on that. I can't turn on this microphone and tell you what to do. You need to talk to your doctor. I can't tell you to go take this supposed treatment or this supposed treatment because I don't know how that supposed treatment would or work with your current medications that you're taking or your current health issues. That's like basic medicine 101. You're going to take a new medicine. Well, what other medications are you taking? Could they have a negative interaction with one another? Wait. I'll give an example before. There was a medication that they were going to give me to treat a problem. Not a serious problem, but they were going to give it to treat me. Treat it. And my doctor looked and said, wait a minute, I can't give you this. Why? He's like, because it lowers your blood pressure, and your blood pressure is like, you definitely are nowhere close to high. It's kind of right there in the perfect area. So we don't want to lower that any. So I'm not going to prescribe that one. We're going to find we're going to use this one. That's not what it's usually for. It's usually for something else. But we're going to use it here. We're going to use it kind of in an off-label way because it's been known to possibly treat these symptoms, and we'll see if it works and see if it has any negative side effects. Because if the doctor had to take it, the medication that's typically prescribed was not going to work because one of its side effects is to lower blood pressure. The doctor had to know my blood pressure. He had to know all of that. But we've got Christians running around, don't do this, don't do that, take this. Here you go. I found some dirt and near the river Jordan, and if you eat the dirt, you'll be cured. It's just like, you're not a doctor. You're not I know it's a little hyperbole there, but you get the idea. I've heard some crazy stuff on Christian radio. Talking about, do this, take this, do this. It works. I know it works because I saw a study on YouTube. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Yeah. And who's the YouTuber? What are their credentials? How about you talk to your doctor? Again, I don't know why that's such a crazy I say talk to your doctor, and everybody's like, ooh, you've been deceived by Satan. You're part of the Illuminati. You're probably a reptilian. You probably came from Area 51, and you've been sent here by the Antichrist to bring us all under submission. Or I'm just trying to be rational, going, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Maybe we should seek medical experts to know what to do. Well, medical experts can be wrong. Yeah, so can people on YouTube. Medical experts can be wrong. Yeah, so can you. Medical experts can be wrong. Yeah, so can Susan on Facebook. Man. And guess what? You can't trust the church because the church will just straight up lie to your face, obviously, when it comes to COVID. There you have it. 1 hour and 4 minutes. You can tell that I'm fired up about this. Again, I want to make it very clear. I don't care that it's MacArthur's name. I don't care that it's Grace Community. I don't care. I've said before, MacArthur's preaching has been absolutely invaluable in my spiritual growth. He has been very influential on my preaching. So I'm not here to bash MacArthur per se. I'm here to bash how the evangelical church has conducted itself in the middle of a pandemic where over 4 million people have died globally and over 630-something thousand people have died in the United States of America at the last count. And hospitals in many areas of the country are overwhelmed. In fact, let me just look here. All the headlines may be gone. I'm just going to go to one site and see. Yeah, most of the headlines are gone here. All right. There was a headline about how many cases in Florida, how many people are dying in Arizona. I think most of those headlines are gone now. I had them. I'm not seeing them right now. Yeah. Yeah, okay. I'm making sure I'm not missing them anywhere. They're probably somewhere down here in all of these news articles, but I'm not going to go back and look at it. All right. Oh, and Israel's planning a 4th dose of the COVID vaccine. All right. So there you go. And then it talks about scientists are saying the end game for COVID is uncertain right now. That's another headline. So, but yeah. But hey, don't believe any of that. Don't believe. Just listen to your local pastor. Just listen to him. Even if he's covering it up. Hey, that's the person to listen to. What a mess. What an absolute mess. The history books are going to show that COVID was the great failure of the evangelical church, not the great example of how Christians handle themselves when people are getting sick and dying. Now, I'm not saying this is true of every church or every Christian. I'm saying that when we overlook at the big picture, we have witnessed some of the most insane, crazy words, behavior, and actions by many Christians. And that's what's going to be remembered, because a lot of those were the people handling it probably correctly are the private ones that nobody knows anything about, nobody sees, that they're not going to be remembered. It's going to be all the public display of insanity. But there's been probably some public displays of handling it correctly as well. So I still think the history book is going to look at this as a time of great failure for the evangelical church. But we'll have to see. All right, you can email me your disagreements to newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. All right, everyone have a great day. I'll try to be back on the air here shortly. God bless.